The story you're about to hear was crafted from a series of declassified documents and witness testimonies from top commanders and high-level individuals in America's nuclear program. Everything you're about to hear was meticulously calculated by scientists and pieced together by Annie Jacobsen in her book, Nuclear War. Hell on Earth, Washington, D.C., possibly sometime in the near future. A 1 megaton thermonuclear weapon detonation begins with a flash of light and heat so tremendous it is impossible for the human mind to comprehend. 180 million degrees Fahrenheit is 4 or 5 times hotter than the temperature that occurs at the center of the sun. In the first fraction of a millisecond after the thermonuclear bomb strikes the Pentagon outside Washington, D.C., there is light, soft X-ray light with very short wavelength. The light superheats the surrounding air to millions of degrees, creating a massive fireball that expands at millions of miles per hour. Within a few seconds, the fireball increases to a diameter of a little more than a mile. Its light and heat so intense that concrete surfaces explode, metal objects melt or evaporate, stone shatters, and humans instantaneously convert into combusting carbon. The 5-story, 5-sided structure of the Pentagon and everything inside its 6.5 million square feet office space explodes into superheated dust from the initial flash of light and heat, all the walls shattering with the near simultaneous arrival of the shockwave, all 27,000 employees perishing instantly. Not a single thing in the fireball remains, nothing. Ground zero is zeroed. Traveling at the speed of light and radiating heat from the fireball ignites everything flammable within its line of sight, several miles out in every direction. Curtains, paper, books, wood fences, people's clothing, dry leaves explode and burst into flames, becoming kindling for a great firestorm that begins to consume a 100 or more square mile area that, prior to this flash of light, was the beating heart of American governance and the home to some 6 million people. Several hundred feet northwest of the Pentagon, all 639 acres of Arlington National Cemetery, including the 400,000 sets of bones and gravestones honoring the war dead, the 3,800 African American freed people buried in Section 27, the living visitors paying respects on this early spring afternoon, the groundskeepers mowing the lawns, the arborists tending to the trees, the tour guides touring, the white-gloved members of the old guard keeping watch over the tomb of the unknown, are instantly transformed into combusting and charred human figurines, into black organic matter powder that is soot. Those incinerated are spared the unprecedented horror that begins to be inflicted on the 1 to 2 million more gravely injured people, not yet dead in this first bolt out of the blue nuclear strike. Across the Potomac River 1 mile to the northeast, the marble walls and columns of the Lincoln and Jefferson memorials superheat, split, burst apart, and disintegrate. The steel and stone bridges and highways connecting these historic monuments to the surrounding environment heave and collapse. To the south, across Interstate 395, the bright and spacious, glass-walled fashion center at the Pentagon City, with its abundance of stores filled with high-end clothing brands and household goods, and the surrounding restaurants and offices, along with the adjacent Ritz-Carlton Pentagon City Hotel, they are all obliterated. Ceiling joists, 2x4s, escalators, chandeliers, rugs, furniture, mannequins, dogs, squirrels, and people burst into flames and burn. It is the end of March, 3:36 p.m. local time. It has been 3 seconds since the initial blast. There is a baseball game going on 2.5 miles due west at Nationals Park. The clothes on the majority of the 35,000 people watching the game catch on fire. Those who don't burn to death suffer intense third-degree burns. Their bodies get stripped of the outer layer of skin, exposing a bloody dermis underneath. Third-degree burns require immediate specialized care and often limb amputation to prevent death. Here, inside the Nationals Park, there might be a few thousand people who somehow survive initially. They were inside buying food or using the bathroom indoors, People who now desperately need a bed at a burn center, but there are only 10 specialized burn beds in the entire Washington metropolitan area at the MedStar Washington Hospital's burn center in central DC. And because this facility is about 5 miles northeast of the Pentagon, it no longer functions, if it even exists. At the Johns Hopkins Burn Center, 45 miles northeast in Baltimore, there are less than 20 specialized burn beds, but they all are about to become filled. In total, there are only around 2,000 specialized burn unit beds in all 50 states at any given time. Within seconds, thermal radiation from this 1 megaton nuclear bomb attack on the Pentagon has deeply burned the skin on roughly 1 million more people, 90% of whom will die. Defense scientists and academics alike have spent decades doing this math. Most people won't make it more than a few steps from where they happen to be standing when the bomb detonates. They become what civil defense experts referred to in the 1950s when these gruesome calculations first came to be as, quote, dead when found. At the Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, a 1,000-acre military facility across the Potomac River to the southeast, there are another 17,000 victims, including almost everyone working at the Defense Intelligence Agency headquarters, the White House Communications Agency headquarters, the U.S. Coast Guard Station, Washington, the Marine One helicopter hangar, and scores of other heavily guarded federal facilities that cater to the nation's security. At the National Defense University, a majority of the 4,000 students attending are dead or dying, with no shortness of tragic irony. This university, funded by the Pentagon, founded on America's 200th birthday, is where military officers go to learn how to use U.S. military tactics to achieve U.S. national security dominance around the world. This university is not the only military-themed higher learning institution obliterated in the nuclear first strike. The Eisenhower School for National Security and Resource Strategy, the National War College, the Inter-American Defense College, the Africa Center for Strategic Studies, they all immediately cease to exist. This entire waterfront area, from Buzzed Point Park to St. Augustine's Episcopal Church, from the Navy Yard to the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge, is totally destroyed. Humans created the nuclear weapon in the 20th century to save the world from evil, and now in the 21st century, the nuclear weapon is about to destroy the world, to burn it all down. The science behind the bomb is profound. Embedded in the thermonuclear flash of light are two pulses of thermal radiation. The first pulse lasts a fraction of a second, after which comes a second pulse which lasts several seconds and causes human skin to ignite and burn. The light pulses are silent. Light has no sound. What follows is a thunderous roar that is blast. The intense heat generated by this nuclear explosion ignites a high-pressure wave that moves out from the center point like a tsunami, a giant wall of highly compressed air traveling faster than the speed of sound. It mows people down, hurls others into the air, bursts lungs and eardrums, sucks bodies up and spits them out. In general, large buildings are destroyed by the change in air pressure, while people and objects such as trees and utility poles are destroyed by the wind, notes the archivist who compiles these appalling statistics for the Atomic Archive. As the nuclear fireball grows, this shock front delivers catastrophic destruction, pushing out like a bulldozer and moving 3 miles farther ahead. The air behind the blast wave accelerates, creating several hundred miles per hour wind, extraordinary speeds that are difficult to fathom. In 2012, Hurricane Sandy, which did $70 billion in damage, killed 147 people, had maximum sustained wind speeds of roughly 80 miles per hour. The highest wind speed recorded on Earth was 253 miles per hour at a remote weather station in Australia. This nuclear blast wave in Washington, D.C. destroys all structures in its immediate path, instantly changing the physical shapes of engineered structures, including office buildings, apartment complexes, monuments, museums, parking structures. They disintegrate and become dust. That which is not crushed by blast is torn apart by whipping wind. Buildings collapse, bridges fall, cranes topple over. Objects as small as computers and cement blocks, and as large as 18-wheeler trucks and double-decker buses become airborne like tennis balls. The nuclear fireball that has been consuming everything in the initial 1.1-mile radius now raises up like a hot air balloon. Up from the Earth, it floats at a rate of 250 to 300 feet per second. 35 seconds pass. The formation of this iconic mushroom cloud begins, its massive cap and stem made up of incinerated people and civilization's debris, transmutes from a red to a brown to an orange hue. Next comes the deadly reverse suction effect, with objects, cars, people, light poles, street signs, parking meters, steel carrier beams getting sucked back into the center of the burning inferno and consumed by flame. 60 seconds pass. The mushroom cap and stem, now grayish-white, rises up 5, then 10 miles from ground zero. The cap grows too, stretching out 10, 20, 30 miles across, billowing and blowing farther out. It eventually reaches beyond the troposphere, higher than any commercial flights go, and the region where most of the Earth's weather phenomenon occurs. Radioactive particles spew across everything below as fallout raining back down on the Earth and its people. A nuclear bomb produces a, quote, witch's brew of radioactive products, which are also entrained in the cloud. The astrophysicist Carl Sagan warned decades ago. More than 1 million people are dead or dying, and less than 2 minutes have passed since detonation. Now, the inferno begins. This is different from the initial fireball. It is a mega fire beyond measure. Gas lines explode one after the next, acting like giant blowtorches or flamethrowers, spewing steady streams of fire. Tanks containing flammable material burst open. Chemical factories explode. Pilot lights on water heaters and furnaces act like torchlighters, setting anything not already burning alight. Collapsed buildings become like giant ovens. People everywhere burn alive. Open gaps in floors and roof behave like chimneys. Carbon dioxide from the firestorm sinks down and settles into the metro's subway tunnels, asphyxiating riders in their seats. People seeking shelters in basements and other spaces below ground vomit, convulse, become comatose, and die. Anyone above ground who is looking directly at the blast, in some cases as far as 13 miles away, becomes blind. 7.5 miles from ground zero, in a 15-mile diameter ring around the Pentagon, the 5 psi zone, cars and buses crash into one another. Asphalt streets turn to liquid from the intense heat, trapping survivors as if caught in a molten lava quicksand. Hurricane-force winds fuel hundreds of fires into thousands of fires, into millions of them. 10 miles out, hot burning ash and flaming windborne debris ignite new fires, and one after another, they continue to conflate. All of Washington, D.C. becomes a complex firestorm, a mega inferno, soon to become a mesocyclone of fire. 8, maybe 9 minutes pass. 10 and 12 miles out from ground zero, the 1 psi zone, survivors shuffle in shock like the almost dead, unsure of what just happened, desperate to escape. Tens of thousands of people here have ruptured lungs. Crows and sparrows and pigeons flying overhead catch on fire and drop from the sky as if it's raining birds. There is no electricity, no phone service, no 911. The localized electromagnetic pulse from the bomb obliterates all radio, internet, and TV. Cars with electric ignition systems in a several-mile ring outside the blast zone cannot start. Water stations can't pump water, saturated with lethal levels of radiation. The entire area is a no-go zone for first responders. Not for days will the rare survivors realize that help was never on the way. Those who managed to somehow escape death by the initial blast, shockwave, and firestorm suddenly realize an insidious truth about nuclear war. They are entirely on their own. Former FEMA director Craig Fugate tells us their only hope for survival is to figure out how to, quote, self-survive. That here begins a fight for food and water. How and why do U.S. defense scientists know such hideous things, and with exacting precision? How does the U.S. government know so many nuclear effects-related facts while the U.S. public remains blind? The answer is as grotesque as the questions themselves. For all these years since the end of World War II, the U.S. government has been preparing for and rehearsing plans for a general nuclear war, a nuclear World War III that is guaranteed to leave, at minimum, 2 billion dead. The end of civilization is upon us.